Breaking news. Welcome to today's headlines. See what is happening in Federal High Court, Abuja. See what is happening in Federal High Court, Abuja. To my dear listeners, from wherever you're listening from, please stay tuned as I read today's news. The prosecutor has dropped one of the charges against Nnamdi Kanu as Mike Ozekome urged the court to strike out the remaining charges, citing lack of credibility. 9 News, Nigeria will keep monitoring the event. The prosecutor has dropped one of the charges against Nnamdi Kanu as Mike Ozekome urged the court to strike out the remaining charges, citing lack of credibility. 9 News Nigeria will keep monitoring the event. The prosecutor has dropped one of the charges against Nnamdi Kanu as Mike Ozekome urged the court to strike out the remaining charges, citing lack of credibility. 9 News Nigeria will keep monitoring the event. The prosecutor has dropped one of the charges against Nnamdi Kanu as Mike Ozekome urged the court to strike out the remaining charges, citing lack of credibility. 9 News Nigeria will keep monitoring the event. The prosecutor has dropped one of the charges against Nnamdi Kanu as Mike Ozekome urged the court to strike out the remaining charges, citing lack of credibility. 9 News Nigeria will keep monitoring the event. To my dear listeners, now I've come to the end of our today's news. And now before I go in my own opinion, to my dear listeners, by now we know the court already has released Nnamdi Kanu, but the government refused to release him. Now the question is, why is federal government not releasing Nnamdi Kanu, despite the court ruling that he should be discharged, he should be granted bail, he should be released from the detention of the DSS? This is for us to know, and this is the highest disrespect order of the rule of law that the federal government has just did. The federal government already has breached the rule of law already. They disobeyed the court order. But I expect this federal government to obey the court order, just like the ASU did when they gave ASU an order to call off its 8-month-old strike. They did. So why is federal government still holding Nnamdi Kanu? That is for us that we should vote the right person in the next coming election, because already holding him is not ordinary. Holding Nnamdi Kanu in DSS detention is not ordinary any longer. So this is for us to know the right party to vote for, to know the right person to vote for, not the ones that keeps enslaving us, thinking we don't know what we are doing, because in this current administration, it is there's no freedom of speech. There's freedom of speech, but freedom after speech, that is what we can't assure ourselves. You actually can talk, there is chance, but what happens aftermath? What happens to the person that already expressed is that expressed himself? In a way, the federal government should add should already take things. But now, when you complain, when you mention anything, the next thing that happens next is they order for your arrest, just because they do not want us to talk. They are depriving us of our rights in this country. So, to my dear listeners, for how long do we need to continue to be under the captive of the federal government without doing anything, while we are the power that these people are using? So, why do we need to keep enslaving ourselves under them when we know we are the power? Without us, there is no them. So, why would they keep doing this to us in all ways? So, fine, Nnamdi Kanu now already shows that they already see him as a threat, and they do not want to release him so that they would be able to do what they want to do. So, to my dear listeners, we should actually know what we are doing. Let's know the right person to vote for in this coming election, so that we won't be a slave for another 80 years. We won't continue to be a slave under this hard regime, lack lack of good roads, bad economy, no good education. So, my dear listeners, now we've come to the end of our today's news.